Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bold Analysis. I have a feeling that politicians in this country must employ or rather invest in psychiatrists so that they will be in a position to manage anger. Because spilling anger in public is something that when you take so much your emotional appeal is seen, then Kenyans fail to judge your rational or rather your message. I'm talking about yesterday's William Ruto's interview with Ageyo in Karen residence. After probably 9 years preparing to make the first presidential stamp and again campaigning for last 4 years, things seems not to still work out for deputy president, and I want to understand that he's really struggling to manage expectations and his own targets. What the posters are showing is that Raila is already taking a lead a month or barely 55 days to the general election, and the strategies here and there seems to be falling apart. I followed that interview for 1 hour and 26 minutes. Now, my focus on it was informed by some 3 incidences that I've seen recently. This interview was coming amidst media criticism by a section of leaders in Kenya Kwanza who had already blacklisted Royal Media Services, the Citizen, Inora, and the rest. And also in Nation Media Group, they had also blacklisted the newspaper. So that interview was coming when there is that push and pull between Kenya Kwanza and the media houses in this country. Secondly, that interview was coming at a time when William Ruto had curtailed media engagements with key political leaders in Kenya Kwanza. Notably, a week ago, Patrick Ole Ntutu, who is vying for governor seat in Nakuru, in Narok, was stopped last minute by the UDA communication team to avoid the campaign against his competitor Ole Kenta that was being conducted by KBC in Masai Mara University. Last minute. And I think I analyzed it there. There was also another one 4 days later. Aisha Jumwa also skipped another gubernatorial debate that was being conducted in Kilifi. And I think that one, all the candidates were there. Kithi, Mungaro, and the other 6 aspirants were there. But Aisha Jumwa was missing in action. I think this video here is a snippet of that interview when Aisha Jumwa skipped. So there has also been a push and pull between the communication team and presidential debate organizers, because the consortium that is putting up the content, the framework, the moderators of organizing that team met William Ruto's team host Mohamed Hussein, who is the head of communications, last week on Thursday, after Ruto came out publicly to announce that he would boycott the presidential debate if moderators come from some media houses. So this interview, people focused on it, not only maybe the general public, but also
is there any circumstance under which you will not accept the result
how
of the
things
election
were going to play out.
I want to promise you that
Notably,
I will organize no demonstration.
There was an instance where that interview
in
was cut.
That's when I promise you.
Before, I wanted to listen to the very last minutes of that interview
of an election,
because
for whatever reason.
There is something I want to point out in that a bit. Kama Ruto anaongea. I just want to do a very small explain on that. Let me explain what happens. When someone is on the field, or for example, that interview is going on there, the cameras are set with the directors and the people are on set. So the cameras feed a software known as OBS, Open Broadcasting Software. Then the feed from OBS is then the signal is sent to the studio. In the studio, there is what is called the control board. The person sitting on the control board is the person that dictates or that controls which feed to go on air. So, for example, sometimes you will realize that when reporters are on field and another reporter is in Kisumu, another one in Mombasa, the person that when the host is saying we are now connecting the audience from coast, the person that he speaks to directly that brings the feed is the person in the control room. So yesterday, if you observed, that interview went likato once from where I am seated. What I can see there is the interview was cut from the control room. The control room is somewhere in the head office and not from that ground, because people are saying that perhaps lights went off. No, I don't think that is it. And perhaps the interview was going, and Ageyo kept on telling him that time is going out, and he was throwing figures one after the other. And I think they just realized that it was not now serving a justice to the audience, and it was now just throwing bit of his manifesto. So that is what happened. It was cut short from this side, from the control board, but not because interview there was a debrief. Understand? So the debrief is where you brief the media team. Ageyo sits down with William Ruto's campaign team and they strategize what do they want to get to media now, what do they want people to talk about. And of course, I want to believe if you listen to DP Ruto talking, there was a point he was telling Ageyo that I wanted to give you this before even we got. I think let's get that a bit.
1.8 trillion to 3 trillion. So I will have more money to run my programs. I will have more money to pay debt. And there will be nothing like restructuring debt.
I really feel disadvantaged here because
25%
you have the figures in your head, but I don't have the
benefit
foreign.
Of 75 is local.
Yeah.
So talking about restructuring is being reckless. And I want to tell you, Joe, these are things that I am passionate about. That's why I requested you earlier. Yeah. We should have talked about these things earlier. These are the things that I am passionate about. These are the things that will change Kenya. And I want to promise you.
Two things that politicians are now working with. One is what I want to say, campaign narratives against manifesto. Manifesto is futuristic because you say what I'm going to do, but campaign narratives are narratives to suppress your opponent. You know, when you're campaigning, first you tell Kenyans what you want to do, but at the same time, you must also negate your opponent. So those are two sides. If you listen to it, the conflict ensued between those two because Ageyo wanted to question the trust threshold. Threshold of trust and integrity is the personality of William Samoei Ruto, and what is it? But Ruto and his team wanted to talk about bottom up. And I want to agree with Joe on this because honestly, why do you think that interview was being held? If it was to be a manifesto, then it's Ageyo that already has a manifesto. So about the manifesto, perhaps it will be Raila Odinga. They would have gone for Raila Odinga. There was nothing that was so striking on that. But there was a hidden agenda that we are going to look at. So the conflict between a bottom-up economic model pitch and the trust threshold is what caused that. And I think people became a little bit impatient when he was not answering questions. He was simply picking and dodging one question after the other. That makes me see something from where I'm seated, that Ruto is avoiding the trust questions. But I'll tell you why exactly he is avoiding, what exactly he doesn't want the media to cover. That is it. Only three things. We're going to look at that. Kindly subscribe to to our channel. There is something that Ruto is struggling with, and it's a reality. The first reality is that he was a deputy president for 9 years, and he cannot undo that. You can take away everything from him, but that is in his face. So because he was a deputy president for 9 years, by default, he carries the Jubilee baggage. But in media, or rather what he is opting Kenyans to take is the success, the goods, and what is good in Jubilee government, but not the failures of Jubilee government.
I am elected deputy president means the people of Kenya, if things go wrong in this government, President Uhuru Kenyatta and I will be the ones to be asked. Forget even about MD of, I don't know, some organization, cabinet secretary this and cabinet secretary that. Ultimately, the people that were given the mandate to run the affairs of this government by the people of Kenya is President Uhuru Kenyatta and I. Tell me for 1 minute, why, after the trust that people of Kenya put on me, why would I sit on national television and say something that's untrue? And to what gain and to what end?
We will even allow to excuse him in the second term if he believes that the handshake may be meddled with the government affairs, if we allow him. But even if you take the very first term, you want to take all those credits, there were corruption scandals. And you will see a direct cutout line of an attempt by him to make sure that he doesn't go that direction. The second thing that he's also avoiding is questioning of the way there is a bit of characterization in his campaign messaging. He doesn't want the media to question his campaign complaints. Very good example is Matiang'i. In this election, they are complaining that Matiang'i is supporting Raila Odinga. In 2017, this is what he wants to say.
Nasikia wameanza kuleta matatizo ya mambo ya usalama, ati wameenda kotini ati askari wasikuweko siku ya kupiga kura. Mimi nauliza nyinyi watu wa Nyamira, unataka askari waweke usalama siku ya kupiga kura? Na tushamwambia Mheshimiwa former Prime Minister anashindana na Uhuru Kenyatta, awachane na Matiang'i.
This characterization of calling out people, targeting people, and remember about the NIA story, attacking the personalities of Raila Odinga and all that, he doesn't want media to question those, because those are personality. You know, when you are seen to be man doing double speaker, it dents your trust on people. And what media really, the role of the media is to inform and also to question. You know, they have to go beyond the pazia, beyond what you are saying. Do Kenyans really need to trust you with it? So that is one thing that played out openly. But lastly, the other thing that he's avoiding, and he doesn't want to bring it to the limelight, is his post-election plan. Everyone else, and by the way, that question, I think, if you ask me, the agenda of that interview was to try to look at this. What will Ruto do if he loses? If you look at the way he answered that question, and I think I played it there, if you look at the way he answered that question, that is a question he honestly didn't want to answer. And you know, he tried when he was asked. When he was asked that question, he first did not answer it. Then, akapiga kona, akaongea, before I to say that, I need to tell people about the billions, and all that. He doesn't want, and he's evading that question. I want to tell you why. The reason is, in the event that he loses the election, reaction will depend on, does he have strength in the National Assembly? If he realizes that he has pulled enough numbers for maybe strength better than Ageyo, then most likely he will just not accept. He will actually reject those results. But if he realizes that he has the numbers, He doesn't have the numbers. So there is no way, because what he can do, he will reject the polls, not for anything, and might not even call any protest, but to illegitimize the government of the day. So from there, from the onset of rejecting results, he forms a momentum for opposition politics and illegitimizing and destabilizing the government. That is why he doesn't want to look at that. But of course, when that is laid out, government might then strategize on what next. But I want to tell you why that interview was held. That interview was meant to strategize on upcoming presidential debate. He's one of the candidates that has been so stubborn on what he wants on table, dictating what he wants to be asked and what he wants to be covered. Now, they wanted to test the question framework and his approach to media engagement. I'm telling you, the moderators of the presidential debate are going to have very difficult time. Remember, when he was being asked, he was talking throughout. He was talking without a full stop. And this is, what is it? And now I think they've got a script of the kind of approach they will have when framing up the content question in the presidential debate. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my bold analysis.